At 9:08 a.m. on April 27th, on the steps of the United States Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., a massive protest began. It was a protest from Donald Trump's own former supporters. This was a revolt from inside the Make America Healthy Again wing of MAGA, and it is yet another signal that Trump's cult is collapsing. The crowd was there because the Supreme Court was hearing a major case involving Monsanto, now owned by Bayer, and glyphosate, the devastating herbicide at the center of over 100,000 cancer-related lawsuits. Here's the promo for the Make America Healthy Again event that has Trump losing supporters.
For decades, Bayer and Monsanto have poisoned our food and our families with glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup. And now, facing over 170,000 cancer lawsuits worth $16 billion, Bayer wants the Supreme Court to bail them out. It's time for the people to take a stand. On April 27th, we will march together at the Supreme Court. America demands equal justice under the law, with no immunity for chemical companies. It's the people versus poison. April 27th in Washington, D.C.
Glyphosate has been linked to a number of cancers, especially blood cancers, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in particular. The World Health Organization classifies glyphosate in Group 2A, which is a probable carcinogen, just below Group 1, which includes things like asbestos and cigarettes. Just wait until you learn how much of this stuff we pour on our farmland in the U.S. every year. I'll get to that in a minute. Even though glyphosate is bad stuff, this protest wasn't aimed at just Monsanto Bayer. It was aimed at the Trump administration's decision to side with Monsanto Bayer in this Supreme Court case, which would limit the ability of cancer patients and other plaintiffs to sue under state laws. It would effectively give Monsanto Bayer a get-out-of-court-free card. This is what makes the moment so devastating for the Trump-MAHA marriage. Here's a clip of Del Bigtree at the event.
The Department of Justice in a country that is supposed to be of, for, and by the people should be bringing justice for the people. But instead today, inside of this building, it is bringing justice for a corporation that has been poisoning the people for decades, Monsanto and Bayer. That is not what this country represents. That is not what our government is supposed to stand for. So when Donald Trump says the Department of Justice to defend corporations against the will of the people, against the health of the people, we need to stand up and say, this is not making America healthy again.
Love the passion. During the 2024 campaign, Trump and RFK Jr. promised the Make America Healthy Again movement a health revolution. They promised to challenge corporate power, clean up the food supply, and take on the forces they said were making Americans sick. And I'll admit, as a physician, this was one of the very few issues where I felt some optimism about Trump and RFK Jr. Instead, we got more beef tallow, less vaccine coverage, less research funding, and now more protections for major corporations that contribute to the sickness and disease of Americans. Here's one of the organizers of the protest. Her name is Vani Hari, also known as the Food Babe. She's been fighting for cleaner, healthier food for at least 15 years, and I actually have a lot of respect for her work.
Right now, inside that building, Monsanto Bayer will be arguing for the right to poison us and not be held accountable. Let me say that again. They want to give us cancer and get away with it. We are here to make sure that does not happen.
And we are not going to leave here quietly. You're going to hear from farmers, scientists, lawmakers, and health leaders from across the country. We have all come here to take a stand. We see exactly what's happening, and we're done pretending this is normal. And let's be very clear. You cannot claim to care about health while protecting poison. You cannot tell Americans to eat real food while protecting the cancer-causing chemicals sprayed on it. You cannot stand with families and side with one of the most evil corporations in the world. Let's be honest. We wouldn't be here right now if President Trump didn't sign that executive order. We wouldn't be here right now if they weren't inside this building arguing on Monsanto's behalf. We wouldn't be here right now if they didn't submit that amicus brief and that recommendation to the Supreme Court to look at this case when they've lost all over this country.
Glyphosate is by far the most heavily used agricultural chemical in history. Nearly 300 million pounds of the chemical are applied to farmland in the U.S. every year. It's been found in more than 90% of tested rivers and streams. The CDC reports that it's been found in the urine of 80% of adults and 87% of children. Despite all of this damning evidence that we are becoming saturated with glyphosate, 2 months ago, Trump signed an executive order declaring the domestic production of glyphosate a matter of national defense. That also means that Monsanto Bayer would have legal immunity from being sued because they were making Roundup as ordered by the U.S. government for defense reasons. Trump also wants to ramp up production to ensure a continued and adequate supply, framing the chemical as essential for maintaining the American agricultural advantage. Most other governments around the world have been moving in the opposite direction regarding glyphosate, limiting it, phasing it down, or banning it outright. So, the Health Crusaders, the core of MAHA, the Make America Healthy Again movement, who were promised a war against corporate poison, are now watching Trump help protect one of the most controversial chemical products in the world. First with that executive order, and now with this separate Supreme Court case. And that is why so many of his own supporters are now accusing him of betrayal. And that is why this is yet another political disaster for Trump. This is what I mean. We have a clip from Alex Clark, a Turning Point USA contributor and previous ardent Trump and MAHA supporter who is not happy with Trump and RFK Jr. Before I play that clip, for 15 years in private practice as an internist, I saw the same problem over and over. A Medicare patient would come in frustrated because their medication suddenly wasn't covered or cost more, or their specialist wasn't in network anymore, or they had picked a Medicare plan that looked good on TV, but it didn't actually fit their life and medical needs. And the sad part was, many of them had no idea that there may have been a better option. That is why I partnered with Chapter. In a quick 20-minute phone call, Chapter walks you through all of your Medicare options, original Medicare, supplemental plans, Advantage, and Part D, and helps you find the plan that actually fits your doctors, your prescriptions, your zip code, and your budget. Seniors who work with Chapter save an average of $1,100 per year. Call 504-613-5925 and speak with a trusted Medicare advisor today. Okay, back to the Trump revolt and protest. Here's Alex Clark, the Turning Point USA contributor and now wavering Trump supporter.
They tell us to eat healthy while the fruit and vegetables that we can afford are sprayed with glyphosate that we cannot wash off. They tell us to get our kids off of screens, so we take them to parks treated with Roundup where children roll in grass soaked in chemicals that are linked to cancer. And years later, when that child is diagnosed with unexplained infertility or her father hears the words non-Hodgkin lymphoma, the same system that exposed them says, Sorry, you can't sue, but at least your yard looks nice. A government that shields chemical companies instead of children has forgotten who it works for. If your product is safe, you don't need immunity. If your product is harmless, you don't spend billions settling cancer lawsuits. If your business model depends on sick kids and silenced farmers, you don't deserve a liability shield, you deserve prison. A foreign chemical company is asking the United States government for permission to poison people without consequence. That's biochemical warfare. Every home in America now knows what glyphosate is, and every single mother just turned into Aaron Brockovich.
Wow, you can really see how effective the expressive language is from people on the right. And in this case, I agree with her. Because if your product really is safe, you should be willing to defend it in court. And if people believe your product caused their cancer, they should get their day in front of a jury. Here's another very effective voice at the same rally, Senator Cory Booker.
Our food system is taken over by a handful of corporations that are driving farmers out of business, exploiting farm workers, hurting families, poisoning communities like the one in which I still live. Today's fight in the Supreme Court is one battle, one big battle in a larger war in this country to take back our food system for the people. And let's be clear, don't let the false narrative of the tribal politics distract you from the truth. This is not a left or right issue. This is a right or wrong issue. This is an issue that belies the failed politics of our present and calls our country to a greater moral imagination, to have a nation that for once and for all we can fulfill our creed, that we would have liberty and justice for all, that everyone could have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Necessary to those things is a food system that serves us and not the big corporations that are poisoning us.
Also, a very effective speaker. There were several other speakers, some MAGA, some Republicans, some Democrats, a bunch of MAHA moms. This glyphosate issue, and really our food system as a whole, should be a non-political issue. We should have affordable, healthy food available to all, with the most basic food supplies produced right here in the good old USA. We don't, because most of your elected leaders take corporate money from big food, big ag, big pharma, etc. Even though you voted for them, they are not working for you. They work for the highest bidder. And that is the deeper betrayal here. The Make America Healthy Again supporters were told Trump and RFK Jr. were going to break that system. They were told this administration would put health first. They were told the government would finally stand up to corporations making Americans sick. But when Monsanto Bayer went to the Supreme Court asking for protection from state lawsuits, Trump's administration took Monsanto Bayer's side. And when glyphosate became a political issue, Trump did not move to restrict it. He declared its domestic production a matter of national defense. That is not the promised health revolution. It's just another Trump lie. And it's one of the many reasons why the Trump cult is collapsing. In fact, MAGA recently moved into stage 3 of the death of a political cult. Stage 4 is the last stage, so the end is upon us. I have a video on that coming soon. So there you have it, folks. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 100,000 subscribers. Come say hi to me over on Blue Sky. Thank you all so much for watching.